A place where your thoughts soften and your breath deepens, where science whispers in stories, and each idea rocks you gently toward rest. If this kind of journey brings you peace, we'd love to have you stay. Subscribe for new bedtime explorations each night, and let us know in the comments what wonders you'd like to wander next. Now settle in. Let's begin. You hold the cup with both hands, feeling its warmth pressing gently into your palms. Outside, the world quiets. Inside, the tea's steam curls upward like a sigh, then vanishes. There's something peaceful about it, and something quietly mysterious, too. The warmth was here, and now it is leaving. Not all at once, but slowly, softly, as if time is pulling it away. You sit in stillness, but around you, and within you, motion hums. The room may seem quiet, yet everything stirs in its own way. Even your tea, resting in its cup, is no longer as it was. It is cooling, always cooling. It never heats itself up again. You notice that, don't you? Things fall, not rise. The air grows colder, not warmer. Order drifts into disorder, and once it goes, it rarely returns the same. This is where our story begins. In the steam that fades, in the warmth that slips away, in the quiet truth behind it all, entropy. Entropy is not a loud idea. It does not rush. It does not scream. It hums like breath in a sleeping room. It is the gentle slide from neatness into mess, from structure into scatter, and it governs almost everything you've ever touched. You may not feel it consciously, but entropy is why ice melts, why candles burn down, why your breath fogs a window in winter and then vanishes into the glass. It is the great unweaving. But this isn't a story of loss. Not exactly. It's more like a lullaby of letting go. The universe, like your tea, once held all its energy tightly. It was compact, hot, bursting with tension. And over time, it sighed outward. It shared. It spread. So too does your tea. The heat leaves the cup, not in a hurry, but in waves. Little packets of warmth rise up and drift away, mingling with the air, disappearing into a wider, cooler world. You can't gather them again. You can't make them fall back into place. This is entropy, the tendency of energy to scatter, the preference of nature to spread itself out. And still, you sit quietly, watching, feeling. Maybe you remember stirring sugar into the tea, how it dissolved, how the grains vanished without protest, folding into every corner of the liquid, never to come back as they were. That, too, is entropy, not destruction, just the dissolving of difference, the smoothing of contrast, things moving from separation to sameness, from sharpness into soft blend. You begin to understand. Not with textbooks or numbers, but with your senses, the warmth in your hands, the steam in the air, the way your breath slows as the night deepens. Entropy does not mean chaos. It means change, and change, you know, isn't always something to fear. It is the tide that carries everything forward. It is how the universe remembers to rest. You lean back slightly. The cup is still warm, but not hot. And you think, why do things always fade away? It's a question older than physics, older than words. Why don't things stay as they are? Why is everything always gently falling apart? Not breaking, just loosening. Not ending, just unfolding. Entropy is not a storm. It's the wind that slowly wears down stone. The soft curve of time moving things from one shape to another. And yet, within that softness, a truth lives, one that feels oddly reassuring. If everything tends to fall apart, then perhaps falling apart is not failure. It's simply how the world moves forward. You finish your tea. The cup is nearly cool now. Your fingers still remember the heat, though it's fading fast. And in that moment, you feel the quiet beauty of impermanence. You feel how things leave only after being here fully. You feel the story behind the steam. Entropy is not the enemy of life. It's its rhythm, a gentle dissolving that makes room for what comes next. The tea cools so your hand may relax. The day ends so night may unfold. Energy is shared, never lost, just moved. And so, your tea returns to the air. The warmth drifts to the room, and something in you relaxes with it. Because if even your tea understands how to let go, perhaps you can, too. You place the empty cup beside you. Your eyes flutter closed for a moment. The world has grown quieter, but not still. Never still. Even now, everything gently shifts. Even now, the stars above are cooling, spreading, drifting. Even now, the universe breathes out. A long, slow exhale. And in that breath, you wonder, if everything unwinds, what was the universe like when it was still tightly wound? The cup is empty now. The steam is gone. But something lingers in the quiet. A question. A pull. You tilt your head toward the stars above, not searching for answers, just listening. You remember what the tea whispered. That heat spreads. That order softens. That everything loosens over time. And now, your thoughts drift wider. Past the cup. Past the room. Past the clouds sleeping over your roof. Up there far beyond what your eyes can reach. The same rule hums through galaxies. Entropy is not just a bedtime thought. It is the breath of the cosmos itself. Once, the universe was not like this. Not vast. Not scattered. Not quiet. It was young, and it was close. Everything packed together, pressed into a single dot of impossible density. No stars. No time as you know it. Just potential trembling. And then it let go. A moment that wasn't an explosion, but an unfolding. The Big Bang. It wasn't a bang in the way we imagine sound or violence. It was more like a stretch. A sudden opening, like fingers unclenching. The tightly held heat and light spilled outward. Space itself swelled with it. And from that first breath, entropy began. Not as destruction, but expansion. A spreading of energy. A slow rearrangement of everything that could be. The universe didn't explode into space. It created space as it went, like a sheet unfolding itself endlessly. Each ripple, each widening, gave room for new stories to begin. The stars? They came later. Galaxies? Later still. You, sitting here now with your slowing breath. You are very late to the party, but you arrived all the same. And that's part of the story. You are made of the dust of stars. Those stars were born in the chaos of cosmic cooling. They ignited in the balance between pressure and collapse. But why did they form at all? Because as the universe unwound, not everything scattered evenly. Tiny ripples, barely whispers, formed places where gravity gathered dust and gas. Those places became stars. Some stars were large, burning fast and dying young. Some were quiet and slow, like our own sun. All of them obeyed entropy. They burned, they radiated, they released heat outward. Every moment a star shines is a soft surrender, a giving away of order into the wilds of time. The same way your tea shared its warmth with the room. Galaxies spun, drawn together, pulled apart. Some collided, some drifted endlessly. All the while, the universe stretched thinner, cooler, quieter. And even now, it's still expanding, still unwinding. Each second, space itself grows larger. Galaxies recede from one another like boats drifting apart in a boundless sea. You feel small when you think about that. But also something else. You feel connected, because the same unfolding that launched galaxies also made room for you. Entropy is not only the tendency to fall apart, it's also the invitation to change, to evolve, to become. Without this grand loosening, there would be no stars to warm planets, no elements to form life, no gentle night to wrap around your shoulders now. So you lie there, and you breathe in. The air cools your lungs. Entropy at work. You breathe out. Entropy again. A balance, not a battle. A flow, not a fall. And you realize the universe isn't dying. It's unfolding, like a story that never skips a page. One line leads to the next. One chapter closes into the shape of the next opening. Even as it cools, even as it fades, it continues. You don't need to understand the math of it. You already live inside its rhythm. Entropy has shaped every cell in your body, every breath of wind, every flicker of candlelight. It's why your tea cools. It's why stars shine. It's why everything changes. And it's why, eventually, everything that is tightly wound will gently unwind, not because it must end, but because that's the only way it can begin again. You close your eyes. Let the thought stretch through you. Let it drift across your mind like mist through morning air. If the universe began in a tight whisper, and now spreads like quiet ripples across time, then what gives time its direction? Why do you remember yesterday but not tomorrow? What is it that makes time flow forward? Time doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder or wait until you're ready. It simply moves, softly, steadily, in one direction. You feel it in the fading of warmth, in the melting of snow, in the flickering of your oldest memories. Time flows forward, always forward. But why? Why can't you go back? Why can't a broken glass leap back onto the table, whole again? Why doesn't the steam return to your tea, or the stars rebuild themselves once they burn out? The answer lies in the same whisper that cooled your tea. Entropy, the invisible current beneath everything. You see, entropy doesn't just explain why things fall apart. It tells you why time exists at all. Not time as a ticking clock, but time as experience, as the movement from then to now to next. Imagine a deck of cards, all arranged in perfect order. Spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs, each suit in neat progression. Now shuffle them. Once, twice, a dozen times. The order disappears. The deck is still full, still whole, but the structure is gone. You can't unshuffle it by chance. Not easily, because disorder is far more likely than order. That's entropy. That's why time has a direction. From low entropy to high, from neat to messy, from memory to mystery. And so, you live your life along that slope, not falling down it, but floating through it, like a leaf on a slow-moving river. You remember the past, because it left a trail, a structure, a footprint in the sand of the universe. Low entropy preserves patterns. Moments can be recalled because they were still fresh in their arrangement. But the future? It hasn't scattered yet. It hasn't taken shape. There's nothing to remember because nothing is built. Only possibilities, waiting to unravel. You cannot uncrack an egg, because the crack creates complexity. Thousands of fragments, where once there was one. It's not impossible to reverse. It's just vastly unlikely. Like drops of ink unblending from water. Like smoke returning to a candle's flame. This is why life feels like it flows forward. Because forward is the direction of dispersal, of energy leaving its tight form and stretching outward. Still, this direction isn't cruel. It gives you rhythm. It gives you stories. It gives you moments that pass, so that new ones may come. Without entropy, there would be no memory, no growth, no death, no dreaming. Everything would be frozen, perfect, unchanging, still, and you, too, would be stuck. A thought that never moves. But entropy allows you to feel change. It lets you forget and remember. It wraps each day in difference, even if only gently. You might think of time as a line, but it's more like a current in a vast ocean, not made of seconds, but of transformation. Each heartbeat, each sigh, each flicker of candlelight is part of this soft push, from less likely to more likely, from held to released. It's why your tea cooled, why the universe unwinds, why stars dim, why you age, not as punishment, but as passage, a silent movement toward wider, looser, more open forms. So what of memory? What of the stories you hold so dearly? They exist because the world once had structure. Moments were sharp, edges were clear, and your brain, dancing with chemical currents, captured that pattern. Now, even as it fades, you still carry echoes, faint ripples, of a river you can never step into twice. But those ripples are real. Even if they soften, they help you see your place in the current, not clinging to the riverbank, but floating, noticing, letting go. There is a comfort in knowing that everything flows in this same direction. The stars, the seas, the cells in your skin, and you. You might think of time as loss, but what if it's simply the spreading of a song, from a tight, single note, into a gentle harmony? Each moment isn't slipping away. It's becoming part of the great blend, the everything that was, is, and will be. Your breath joins the wind. Your thoughts join the dusk. Your time joins time. And still, in the middle of it all, you are here, present, drifting through the current, still enough to notice it. Entropy may steer time forward, but you are not being dragged. You are being carried. Softly. Where does the river go? What does it do with everything it gathers? You feel the current pulling on stars, on cells, and you begin to wonder, what happens when stars finally let go? There was a time when your fingers pressed wet sand into towers, tiny walls, curved moats, a crooked flag made of stick and leaf. You worked carefully, slowly, and then the tide came in and took it all. At first, it felt like loss, but the ocean didn't mean to break it. It was only following its rhythm, a pattern deeper than your castle, older than memory. You sat, watching the walls melt into the waves, and you didn't know it then, but you were watching entropy do its gentle work, not as violence, not as destruction, but as a return, as a sharing. Your sandcastle didn't vanish. It became part of the beach again, part of the ocean floor, part of the hands that would build again the next day. Now look upward, to a place where sand is made of stars. Stars, they are the grandest castles of all, built not from grains and water, but from gravity and fusion. A star is born when dust gathers and presses in on itself, when the push becomes too great to resist. The center ignites, a fire unlike any you've known, a fire not of flames, but of atoms fusing into light. From that moment, the star begins a slow burning, a quiet resistance to entropy. It holds itself together by fusing elements, hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, each step releasing energy into the cosmos. This is a star's version of life, a balance between collapse and heat, between gravity pulling inward and fusion pushing outward. But this balance cannot last forever, because fuel runs low. The elements change. Entropy waits patiently. When a star has fused all it can, when its core is heavy with iron, it cannot give energy anymore. And then, the castle crumbles. Some stars collapse quietly, becoming white dwarfs, small, dense embers that cool for billions of years. Others end in brilliance, A supernova, a single moment of unimaginable light, a star unraveling into the fabric of space. And here's the quiet miracle. That unraveling is not the end. It is the beginning of everything. From the death of stars come all the elements you know. Carbon, calcium, oxygen, iron. Everything your body is made of was forged in the furnace of a dying star. The calcium in your bones once drifted in the heart of a supernova. The oxygen in your lungs once lit up the edge of a collapsing sun. You were made by falling apart, by the graceful, inevitable spread of something once held tight. Entropy doesn't just dissolve. It redistributes. It passes the pieces forward. And in this, it builds again. Think of leaves in autumn. They fall, not to end the tree, but to feed the soil beneath it, to make space for something new. Stars fall in the same way, to become planets, to become people, to become the very tea that cooled in your cup. And still, even knowing this, you feel a tug when things break, a pause in the heart, because the moment of letting go always carries weight. But perhaps weight is not always something to fear. Perhaps it's a gift, a memory pressed into matter. The stars didn't vanish. They scattered. They spread themselves into possibility. They became the sand that formed your castle by the sea. You are not separate from this. You are not an observer. You are an echo of the rhythm. You too are built. You, too, will scatter. And you, too, will become something more. And so the universe builds, not in spite of falling apart, but because of it. The stars do not mourn. They shine, they release, they become. And you sit now still breathing, still carrying their dust, still watching the tides come and go. There's peace in knowing you are not alone in your undoing. Even the stars fall. Even the castles crumble. Even the brightest lights must one day dim. But what rises after may be brighter still. As your eyes soften in the quiet, you wonder, if stars burn by releasing their heat, what happens to all that warmth? Where does it go? And what does it mean when the universe begins to cool? The stone was warm a moment ago. You pressed your fingers to it. Smooth, sun-soaked, comforting. But now, as dusk deepens, the warmth has begun to fade. Not all at once. Not with drama. But gradually, quietly. This is how the world breathes out. One gentle drift of heat at a time. You may not hear it. You may not see it. But the transfer of warmth is one of nature's oldest, softest songs. A lullaby sung in molecules. Heat always moves the same way. From warm to cool. From the center outward. From fullness to sharing. This isn't just a habit of nature. It's a rule. A law deeper than gravity. Deeper than time itself. No warm thing stays warm forever. No system, no cup, no sun. Everything gives its heat to the space around it. Not in grief, but in rhythm. You sit by the window now, holding that thought, feeling the room cool with the night. And you realize, this is entropy again. This is how it moves when it wears the mask of temperature. The warmth in the stone spreads into the air. The molecules, once dancing fast, begin to slow. They bump into cooler ones and share their energy. Each exchange a tiny kindness. Each moment, more balance, more sameness. Eventually, everything in the room, the floor, the walls, the air, the tea, even your breath, finds a kind of quiet agreement. Not too hot, not too cold, just equal, just still. This is thermal equilibrium, not an end, but a hush, a place where difference no longer needs to speak. Heat is not just fire or flame. It is motion. It is the dance of particles, the invisible ballet of everything with energy. When you touch something warm, You feel its motion, its excitement, its eagerness to share what it holds. And when that motion fades, it doesn't vanish. It moves, always into something else. That's the rule. That's the direction. And it's why the universe cools with age. The stars you learned about, those brilliant fires that shape all matter, they, too, release their warmth, not just into nearby space, but into the vast, stretching fabric of the cosmos. Every photon of light that escapes a star carries energy, carries motion, carries heat. It flies across billions of years, growing fainter, longer, softer as it travels. A cosmic sigh. This is what makes the universe cool. Not quickly, but inevitably. The energy leaves the hot and flows to the cold. And there is so much cold, so much space to fill, so much darkness waiting, quietly welcoming what the stars release. It isn't sad. It's simply open, like night falling on a field, like silence after song. This movement of heat shapes everything. Why your soup cools, why engines stop, why bodies sleep, why planets, even lifeless ones, change over time. Entropy, through heat, makes time feel alive. It turns firewood to ash. It turns summer into autumn. It turns the spark into smoke. And yet, in all this drift, there is meaning. Heat is the carrier of stories, the way energy remembers its source. A sunbeam touching your cheek is not just warmth. It's the echo of a fusion deep within a star. A journey begun millions of miles away, finished in the softness of your skin. The drift of heat is not loss. It is connection, the sharing of motion, from what once held it to what now receives it. You are not separate from this flow. Your body, too, is a vessel of warmth. Your blood moves heat from your core to your fingers. Your skin gives it gently to the air. Even in sleep, you glow with soft energy, wrapped in the quiet work of keeping balance. And when you rest, your warmth becomes part of the room, the bed, the blanket, the night itself, everything blending, everything equalizing, everything listening. This is why, over long enough time, everything becomes still, not frozen, but balanced, peaceful, even. That stone you touched at the beginning. Its warmth is not gone. It is simply elsewhere, in the walls, the air, perhaps in you. Heat does not disappear. It disperses. It spreads its story. It teaches everything it touches how to slow down, how to rest, how to be. And in the far future, beyond you, beyond this earth, even beyond the stars, the universe will reach a hush, a state of gentle, even temperature, where no place is warmer than another, where all motion becomes stillness, where time itself may lose its shape. This is the heat death of the universe. Not fire, but silence. Not explosion, but balance. A final symmetry. A perfect whisper of entropy fulfilled. But you are not there. You are here. In the motion. In the in-between. In the warmth that still flows. And still reaches. And still lives. And tonight, as your own heat mingles with the dark, you may wonder, if all things gently cool, why do we sometimes feel chaos? Not calm. What is this pull toward the scattered, the tangled, the beautifully messy? And what does it mean when disorder begins to dance? You open the drawer. Neat rows of folded socks. A quiet triumph of order. Then, life steps in. Rushed mornings. Half-closed drawers. A tumble of color and cloth. The rows vanish. The drawer becomes a swirl. At first, it seems like failure. But step back, and you begin to see it differently. This is the natural drift of things. Not broken, not ruined, just rearranged. This is how entropy dances. not with violence, but with freedom, a preference for the possible over the perfect. Because order, true order, is rare. It's precious, yes, but fragile. One small breath and it shivers. Disorder? It is wide, vast, welcoming. There are more ways for things to be jumbled than there are for them to be neat. It's like spilling a box of puzzle pieces. They fall in hundreds of ways, but there is only one finished picture. So entropy, in its quiet preference, leans gently toward the spill, not the snap of completed edges. And yet, that mess, that seeming randomness, it holds stories. It holds energy. It holds potential. Zoom in far enough, and even the shuffle reveals its shape. In your body, countless molecules collide and mix. A rush of particles, not one of them standing still. To the eye, it would seem like chaos. But in that dance, your cells breathe, your heart beats, your thoughts bloom. Disorder is not the absence of design. It is the texture of becoming. The same is true of the sky. Clouds are not arranged. They are born in turbulence, in collisions, in uneven warmth. But what beauty they carry! What softness! What form, despite the lack of control! Nature doesn't build with rulers. It builds with flow. Cities sprawl. Forests tangle. Rivers meander. Order emerges not by force, but by invitation, by allowance. Entropy doesn't stop this. It allows it. The more pieces in play, the more chance for complexity. Think of the socks again. All mixed now. But what colors? What patterns peeking through the pile? Disorder invites surprise. You are taught to crave neatness, to clean, to stack, to fold. But in truth, you live in the movement between tidy and wild. A bookshelf collects dust. A building weathers. A mind forgets. This is not failure. It's the slow reshaping of everything, the soft editing of time. Entropy does not destroy meaning. It creates the conditions for new meanings to form. Even your memories shift, blur, rearrange. But in doing so, they make space for growth, for imagination, for new ways to see the same past. That's the beauty of disorder. It opens, not closes. And still, you try to build towers in the wind. You organize, you plan, you sort. And that, too, is natural. A kind of resistance that gives rise to life. Life, in many ways, is order's last stand. A tiny flame held up in a storm. A pattern carved against the gray. Your body, your mind. They take the scattered and build the steady. But it takes energy, focus, delicate balance. And the moment you stop feeding that pattern, it begins to fray, to blur at the edges. Yet perhaps that's okay, because from that blur, newness begins. The moment you stop holding so tightly, something softer takes shape. A thought you hadn't planned, a path you hadn't drawn, a breath you didn't know you needed. So tonight, if your thoughts feel tangled, if your plans feel scattered, don't resist so hard. Let the dance continue. Let the socks be mismatched. Let the clouds rearrange. This is not failure. This is the natural drift, the spread that makes beauty possible, the mess that holds every masterpiece before it's seen. And if the world leans toward disorder, you might wonder, how does life stay alive at all? How does anything, especially something as fragile as you, keep its shape in a world that loves to scatter? Breathe in. Feel the air press into your lungs, filling the shape your body holds open for it. Now breathe out. Warmth leaves you, energy quietly shared. And yet, with every breath, you remain, you, an island of balance. In a sea that drifts toward unraveling, life is not an escape from entropy. It's a negotiation, a deal struck in the language of molecules, made again and again, every moment you're alive, because the universe leans toward disorder. But life leans back, not with force, but with rhythm. You are made of organized chaos, cells that copy themselves, proteins that fold just right, chemicals that race through your veins, like well-rehearsed dancers on a stage. But it doesn't last on its own. To keep your pattern alive, you must pull an order from outside. A meal, a breath, a slant of sun on your skin. Each one delivers energy, little bundles of structure that you break apart and rearrange into yourself. Life is entropy in reverse. Temporarily, locally, magically, you take the falling apart of the world and build something with it. Not forever, but long enough to grow, to move, to feel. Your heart beats. Not because it escapes entropy, but because it spins energy. To push back, every heartbeat is a cost, a pulse of borrowed order. And yet, what you build with that cost is miraculous. A thought, a touch, a dream that survives the night. You are not alone in this work. Every leaf, every ant, every flicker of plankton beneath the waves is doing the same. Living things gather energy. They use it to maintain structure. They keep their form for a while, and when they can no longer keep it, they let go. They scatter, and in that scattering, they give others the chance to rise. This is how the forest breathes, how the coral reef pulses, how the tide pool churns with color and light. Life is not separate from entropy. It's shaped by it, defined by its contrast, alive only because it constantly rearranges itself faster than it falls apart. You might think of life as a flame, fed by fuel, radiating warmth, holding shape only as long as there is something to burn. And your body, it is a vessel for that fire, a brief, astonishing order, held in place by the food you eat and the light you absorb. Even your thoughts are flickers of this dance, chemical sparks, balanced on the edge of chaos, electrical currents threading through neurons, making meaning, making memory, making you. You live by staying just ahead of the current, not escaping it, but moving with it, like a fish in a fast river, always swimming upstream. And when you tire, when the fuel runs low, you slow. The pattern begins to blur. The body begins to loosen its grip. But this is not tragedy. This is return. This is release. What you built becomes the building blocks for something new. Your warmth feeds the earth. Your molecules find new arrangements. Your story is never lost, only reshaped. Because life is a cycle, a loop of form and formlessness, of gathering and letting go. You are not resisting nature. You are nature, pausing, shaping, breathing. And while you last, you shine. You balance on the edge of collapse. With grace, you are the warm cup. In the cooling room, the fleeting star. In the widening sky. And tonight, as you lie still in bed, your body soft with rest, know this. You are not failing. You are part of the flame. You are part of the song, a soft harmony, in the dance against the current. And as your breath slows, you might ask, if life depends on borrowed energy, where did the first spark come from? How did order ever begin? In a world made to fall apart? Before the forest, before the seas, before even the stars found their light, there was silence, not the silence of rest, but the silence of possibility. No breath, no pulse, no cell dividing under moonlight, only motion without memory, only energy slowly scattering through space. Yet something waited in that quiet, not a purpose, not a plan, but a pattern. The universe, though ruled by entropy, is not random. It is structured chaos. And in that structure, tiny miracles begin. You imagine a warm pool, shallow, mineral-rich, beneath a sky of fire and lightning. This is not imagination. This is one version of how life might have begun. Molecules drift, bump, cling, separate, over and over, day after day, in the heat of sun and the cool of night. Some molecules stick together longer than others. Some form loops. Some hold shape just long enough to influence the next. None of them are alive yet, but something stirs. A lean toward pattern, a pause in the endless fall, and then, at some unmeasured moment, a spark, not fire, but organization, a structure that copies itself, that holds its form, and makes more, not perfectly, not forever, but enough to stay, just ahead of the unraveling. And that was the beginning, not of life as you know it, but of the first step in the climb, a self-copying molecule, a whisper of memory, in a world of forgetting. How strange, how beautiful, that something so delicate could persist in such a wild, hot world. But that's what entropy allows. Not just collapse, but creation, through countless chances, given enough time, given enough combinations, given enough room to try. Even a quiet universe begins to hum. Soon, these early molecules learn to protect themselves, to hide inside membranes, to trade energy for structure. They feed on heat, on light, on chemicals in the soup around them. And in doing so, they become more than chemistry. They become cells. The first life didn't explode into being. It folded into place, slowly, lovingly, like a hand learning to hold water. And once life began, even in the smallest form, entropy had a partner, a dancer, a slow-moving sculptor that worked in reverse, not to erase entropy, but to borrow space within it, to carve islands of order out of the ever-widening sea. That's what life is. A pause, a loop, a moment of balance, held just long enough to grow. Each early cell was fragile. Many vanished. But the patterns that survived were passed on, copied, mutated, improved. And now, here you are, billions of years later, reading, thinking, breathing. Your thoughts are echoes of that first ripple. Your cells are mosaics of every survival that came before you. You carry ancient shapes in your blood, in the spiral of your DNA, in the salt of your tears, in the warmth of your belly. That spark never left. It only changed form, and it still remembers the silence, the chaos, the dance it stepped into. Even now, your body recreates it. Tiny origin stories, happening every moment, in every cell. Your life is not a miracle in spite of entropy. It is a miracle because of entropy, because there is always drift. There is always room to shape something new, because nothing lasts. You are moved to build, to breathe, to be. So next time you feel fragile, or brief, or lost in the sprawl of time, remember this. You come from the first spark, from molecules that learn to hold on. You are the answer to a billion silent questions. And tonight, as you lie here, held by gravity, wrapped in warmth, you are still glowing. With that same ancient fire, you might ask, if life came from such small beginnings, what happens when it becomes vast? How do these sparks grow into minds that can imagine the stars? Close your eyes, and something stirs inside. A picture, a sound, a feeling with no name. You did not summon it. It rose on its own. a ripple inside the quiet space of thought. This is your mind, not a place, but a motion, a current made of light and chemistry, born from fire, still burning. You might think thoughts are weightless, but they aren't. They take energy. Each idea you hold, each word you remember, is a flicker, a spark, drawn from the same fuel that keeps your body warm. Your brain is a symphony of tiny fires, neurons pulsing, passing signals down long, thin threads, like lightning, but softer, like whispers carried by flame. Billions of these threads cross and recross inside the space behind your eyes. They never rest. Even in sleep, they hum. Each moment, your thoughts emerge from this warm machinery, this shimmering map of electric life. And all of it, rides on entropy, because your brain, like the rest of you, cannot escape the current. It fights it, bends it, uses it to make meaning, before letting it go again. The order in your thoughts is borrowed. The fire that fuels them must be fed. This is why rest matters, why food matters, why dreams come when the fire dims low. Even your imagination, this gentle space you're in now, is a byproduct of warmth, moving through matter, with rhythm, with grace. You remember a face. That memory feels solid, but it is not stored in one place. It is scattered, a constellation of signals that must light up in perfect sequence to come alive again. One part recalls the eyes, another, the voice, another, the feeling in your chest. And when those sparks align, the image returns, just for a moment, then fades, like firelight licking the edges of a page, before disappearing again into night. This is not a flaw. This is how memory works. Fleeting, fluid, always rebuilding itself, always moving. You are not a machine. You are a flame, burning steadily, flickering at the edges, changing shape with each breath. Some fires burn hot and quick. Some smolder low and long. But all need space to breathe, time to flicker freely, stillness to reflect. And so does your mind. You may not see it, but every thought is a negotiation, a balance between pattern and possibility, between the comfort of the known and the thrill of the new. Entropy makes you forget, but it also makes you dream. It loosens the knots, so new threads can be tied. Your mind drifts not because it is broken, but because it is alive. And life is motion. There is no single you waiting behind your thoughts. You are the collection, the choreography, the warmth arranged in a shape that feels like self. And even that changes, grows, fades, returns. You are memory and forgetting. You are signal and silence. You are a story that retells itself, night after night. And what a story it is, built from sunlight, shaped by gravity, lit by the same forces that power the stars. Every thought you've ever had has been carried by energy that once passed through stone, through plant, through breath. You are the link between what was and what could be. So as you lie here, letting your mind drift, know this: your thoughts are not nothing. They are the glow of life in motion, a fire inside a vessel of cells and softness, riding lines across the dark. You may wonder now, if even your thoughts must burn to stay bright. What happens when there's nothing left to fuel the flame? Does everything simply go out? Or does the ember wait? There is a hush that comes, not from silence, but from knowing that everything is finally still. You have felt it. In the last flicker of a candle, in the soft weight of sleep, just before it takes you. Not an end, but a return. The flame grows low. The energy disperses. Not lost, never lost, but let go. This is entropy too. Not chaos, not collapse, just peace. The universe does not end in fire. It ends in balance. All things warm have shared their heat. All movement has slowed. The great engines of stars, of thought, of breath, they pause. And in that pause, there is no tragedy, only the final unfolding of a long, patient story. You once held a warm cup in your hands. Steam rose. Now it is cool. The warmth is not gone. It is simply spread, so wide, so evenly, that it no longer gathers, no longer clings, no longer burns. This is what scientists call heat death, a future where everything, every star, every molecule, has shared its energy completely. No more gradients, no more spark, just stillness. But stillness is not nothing. Stillness is the echo of everything that once moved, once breathed, once burned. And in that stillness lies the memory of stars, of life, of minds, of you. Entropy is always led here, not as punishment, but as passage. Each warm cup cooling, each wave erasing a sandcastle, each star giving its light to the dark. These are not failures. They are offerings, gifts, seeds. The fire fades. Yes, but it leaves behind ash that nourishes the soil. It leaves behind space where something new might someday stir. And perhaps, for into that future, in some forgotten corner of a quiet universe, another ripple will rise, another pattern will form, another flame will spark, because entropy never forbids life. It makes it rare, precious, possible, just long enough to dream. And now, you lie here, at the edge of sleep, your own warmth, still spreading, your own breath, still part of the pattern. You are not ending. You are resting. You are not vanishing. You are becoming still. Let the mind loosen. Let the thoughts grow soft. Let the story pause, just long enough to feel the quiet that waits beneath everything. Entropy does not erase. It opens. It unfolds. And in that unfolding, you find space to imagine, to rest, to begin again. The universe is not in a hurry, and neither are you. So sleep now, with the warmth of stars still in your chest, and the hush of time wrapping gently around your shoulders, because even in the soft fade of everything, something always stays. A whisper, a warmth, a waiting light. You are still here, breathing softly, wrapped in the hush of everything that came before. The falling leaves, the cooling tea, the last echo of starlight that touches your skin. Even now, the universe never promised permanence, only pattern, only motion, only change. And yet, within that constant shifting, you have built moments of stillness, of warmth, of meaning. This, too, is part of entropy, not just the spreading, but the gathering, the gentle organization. Before the unravel, a snowflake forms, even as the air around it swirls in chaos. A heartbeat persists, even as the world cools. A memory remains, even as time forgets the shape of everything. You are made of borrowed order, held briefly, loved deeply, released gently. That is not failure. That is beauty. Your thoughts, your laughter, your soft presence, they are patterns the universe allowed, because it could. Entropy did not stop them. It enabled them. You are not an accident in a collapsing world. You are a chorus in its final, most delicate song. Even your sleep is shaped by it. Your cells rebalancing, your heat distributing, your thoughts drifting through tangled paths toward quiet. And tomorrow, if it comes, will be new again. Not because everything is restored, but because everything is different. Even decay leaves behind texture, and texture is the beginning of new life. In the unraveling, there is softness. In the drifting apart, there is space. Not all things must stay fixed. To matter, a star fades, and planets are born. A forest burns, and new seeds take root. A heart breaks, and still, it learns to love again. This is the rhythm. This is the trust. That what falls apart feeds what comes next, and what you hold in this moment. This breath, this warmth, this thought is enough. You do not need to solve the world, to be part of its wonder. You do not need to stay forever, to leave a mark. A ripple is enough. A whisper, a glow. The fire inside you will dim, yes, as all things must. But before it does, it lights the way for something else. Perhaps someone, perhaps nothing. But light never vanishes. It only travels farther than we can see. And so, you let go, not into fear, but into fullness. You lie here, blanketed by time, cradled by gravity, carried by heat that once belonged to stars. And in this stillness, a strange truth begins to bloom. That entropy, for all its scattering, has brought you here, to this moment, to this peace. You are part of the drift, and the drift is not empty. It is filled with the soft possibility of everything that ever was, and everything that might still be. So sleep now, with the comfort that nothing is wasted, nothing is alone, nothing is ever truly gone. You are stardust, still warm, still wondering, still shining softly, as the universe unfolds around you. The end. Thank you for listening to the Bedtime Sleep. New poetic science journeys await you each night. Don't forget to subscribe, and let us know what you'd like to dream about next.